Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove and I am back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to diet, training, and supplementation that I received over the past 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at fitcosgrove_. All right, let's get started with this week's no filter Q&A with question number one. Nick, I'm trying to gain muscle but have been stuck at the same body weight for months. Should I eat more or should I eat less? Well, I mean, the obvious answer is you're going to want to eat more, right? If you need to add on more muscle, you need to consume more calories. However, you have to make sure the calories you're consuming or you're utilizing are going to help you perform better in the gym so that you can increase the weight that you're lifting, which is going to equate to more muscle mass. So you want to make sure you're getting in quotation clean calories. Okay. So essentially, you want to be looking at your macronutrients. And as I always talk about when you're looking at your macronutrients, more importantly, you need to look at your micronutrients, the quality of the macronutrients you're consuming. So a lot of people will say, well, if you want to put on muscle, you got to increase your protein. True. But more importantly, if you're trying to put on size, as in you're trying to put on larger muscle, larger dense muscle bellies, you need to be able to lift heavier weights. Protein alone is not going to allow you to lift heavier weights in the gym. It's going to help you build muscle through protein synthesis. It's going to help you build actual solid, lean, dense muscle. But in order to perform in the gym and lift heavier weights and train with the utmost amount of intensity, you need carbs. Okay. So you can't be afraid of carbs. Everyone's so afraid of having carbs because they're going to get fat. If you're consuming the right carbs, as in the complex carbohydrates that I've talked about again and again on this channel, white rice, brown rice, quinoa, yams, sweet potatoes, oatmeal, cream of rice, these are all good types of carbs. Okay. Your body's going to utilize them to help replenish glycogen storage, which is going to allow you to lift heavier weights in the gym, which is going to equate to more muscle. All right. But here's the thing. Let's say you're someone who's doing 300 grams of carbs a day. You don't just double that to 600 overnight, because what's going to happen then is you are going to actually hold water. You're going to retain some body fat because you're not training your digestive tract. You're not training your metabolism to slowly start increasing those calories, to slowly start increasing those carbs. Okay. So I'll use myself for example, post show. I'm now about 30 days post show while filming this week's No Filter Q&A. When I came back from my show, my first week back from the show, I actually stuck to the contest prep diet, pretty much the exact same. The week after, I slowly started to bump up my carbs by 50 grams per day. Did that for a week. The second week, I upped it by 100 grams per day. The third week, I went to 150 grams per day. And this past week, 200 grams more than I was consuming before. So my carbs now are roughly around 450 grams of carbs per day. Okay. My plan for me is after about 6 weeks post show is to get them back up to about 600 grams per day. And that's what I find works well for my body. It doesn't make me retain any additional water. I don't get body fat, none of that. However, I'm doing it very gradually. Just like when I diet someone down, I do it very gradually. Okay. And I'm noticing by increasing my carbs slowly, my strength in the gym is increasing. All right. Because my glycogen storages are full. So you want to make sure you're doing this in an intelligent manner. You don't just start increasing food, because if you just start increasing food and eyeballing things and say, well, maybe I should have this McDonald's cheeseburger or McFlurry. Maybe I should have an egg McMuffin or, have a few donuts. No, because your body's not going to utilize those calories as fuel for your workouts. So they're not going to help you perform in the gym, which is not going to equate to more muscle. It's going to equate to more fat. So you want to make sure that you're utilizing those calories to the best of your ability, which should be in the gym. And I always talk about how your two heaviest or two highest, I should say, carb meals should be around the workout. So pre-workout and post-workout. Obviously, if you're someone who works out better in a fasted state, let's say you work out 6 in the morning, I'm not saying don't do that. Just make sure that your post-workout has quite a bit of carbs in there. And I can't tell you exactly how many carbs I have because that's really based on the individual. Like for myself personally right now, my post-workout consumes of 2 cups of white rice and 2 scoops of protein powder. Right. So that's a lot of carbs, a lot of protein, but that's my highest carb meal of the day. All right. So my body needs it, replenish glycogen storages, but you'll notice that when your carbs are high, your strength goes up. As far as fats are concerned, fats are important. Like, and I've always talked about how, in my opinion, fats are actually the most important macronutrient from a health standpoint. But as far as performance in the gym, I mean, fats help to a degree, right? They're going to help you feel fuller for a longer period of time. Of course, we need them for our brain. But as far as performance, I wouldn't really say fats are crucial for performance. In fact, I usually tell people not to have fats pre-workout because fats do slow down the digestive tract in a sense, right? You're digesting your food, so fats take longer to break down. So I always talk about the last thing you want is your body breaking down food slowly while you're trying to work out. That can create nausea, upset stomach, bloating, lethargic. You feel very lethargic in the gym. So that's why I usually recommend save your fats for post-workout. Okay. Or if you work out later in the afternoon, have it for maybe breakfast, meal two, but your pre-workout meal, in my opinion, shouldn't really consume of much of any fats. Okay, so focus on increasing your carbs, do it gradually, and that will help you increase your strength. Because if your strength is going to go up, guess what? You're going to build muscle as long as you're eating clean calories. All right. Nick, I train with weights 5 days a week. Is that enough, or should I be training more if I want to build muscle and lose fat? Okay, so it's not how often you're in the gym, it's what you do when you're in the gym. Because you could have someone who's in the gym 3 days a week, but if they're training harder and if they're training smarter than someone who's in the gym 5 days a week or 6 days a week, or in some cases 7 days a week, the person who's training 3 days a week is going to get better results. So it's not how much you're doing, it's what you're doing. It's the same thing when people tell me they're in the gym for an hour and a half and they're not getting results. I'm like, but what are you doing in an hour and a half? I mean, I talked about in the past how my workouts and my own clients' workouts are usually 45, 50 minutes of actual weight training. By then, we're spent, we're done. Because if you are training with the utmost amount of intensity, you're training intelligently, you're approaching your workouts methodically, you should be done after 45, 50 minutes. So it's not that longer duration means, wow, I'm going to get better results. No, not necessarily. I know I preach about doing more as in more food, more rest, more training, but you have to do it in an intelligent manner. All right. So if you're someone who is just going to the gym and let's say you're doing the same like workout routine 3 times a week, 4 times a week, are you going to get results? Probably. Are they going to be good results? Decent, but you'll get better results if you design a proper training split. So if you're in the gym 5 days a week, that could look like chest day one, back day two, shoulders day three, arms day four, legs day five. Take 2 days off, or you can take one day off in between, and then you have a nice training split and you're working each muscle group once a week, 45 to 60 minutes max, you're in and out. Okay. And when I talked about the in and out, no phones, no distractions, no talking to people at the gym, just focused on what you're doing, laser focused on every set, every rep you're doing. Okay. So I'm not going to say, yes, you should be in the gym 6, 7 days a week. You might even need to back off your training. Sometimes that's what I tell people to do as well. Sometimes people are overtraining, but rarely. Most people undertrain. So what I would suggest to you is really dissect what you're doing in those 5 days. Are you keeping maximum intensity? Are you keeping your workouts to under an hour? Are you making sure that you're not looking at your phone? Are you making sure that you're not talking to your gym neighbors? Are you not making sure you're not taking gym selfies? Are you really focused in on the workout you're doing? If you are, and you feel that, hey, I'm doing 5 days, but I feel I could do a 6 day, I say do it. I'm a firm believer that you can't overtrain as long as you are training intelligently. If you're training like an idiot, yes, you're going to overtrain. If you're bench pressing 3 times a week, you're overtraining. If you're squatting 3 times a week, you're overtraining. But if you're squatting once a week and you're doing drop sets, you're not overtraining. You're going to give your body a full 6 days of rest after squatting. Same thing with bench press. So as long as you're training in an intelligent manner, you don't have to risk overtraining. All right. But if you are someone who has a hard time with recovery, back off your training a little bit. Some people don't recover as quickly as others. I know for myself, because I have a pretty good training split, I've been training for years, I recover pretty quick. Okay. So I listen to my body. I don't just go into the gym and say, well, today's leg day. And if for some reason I'm having hip or knee pain, I've talked about this in the past. I don't say, well, I have to do legs anyway. No, I'm smart. I'm like, okay, I'll do legs tomorrow. I'll do legs this week, but today my body's saying, no, don't do legs. So you got to listen to your body and don't worry about how much you're doing. Just pay attention to what you're doing in the gym. All right. Nick, why does my physique look worse even though I'm stronger than ever? Yeah, I touched on this a similar question this last week. So here's the thing. Just because you're strong does not equate to better aesthetics. Okay. That's not true because if that were true, every power lifter on a powerlifting stage would have ripped abs, which Very few do, if any. Most of them have bellies, right? Because a powerlifter's objective, I talked about this in the past, is just to lift heavy weight. So they have to consume lots of calories, both good and bad. This kind of correlates with that first question I was talking about. You have to make sure that your diet is dialed in correctly. So as much as you might want to just consume calories to get bigger, you have to think, what is that bigger going to look like? Because bigger is not necessarily better. Okay. So again, like all my calories I consume, I'm well over 5,500 calories a day, but they're all clean calories. And I can tell you that's a lot of volume going in because to get 5,500 calories from clean food, you have to eat a lot. I could easily go down to McDonald's or Chipotle's and probably put back 5,500 calories in one meal, right? But if you're doing it with clean foods, it's a lot of food. I'm telling you right now, it's a lot of food. And it's not easy. It's actually difficult. It's like a full-time job. You got to be constantly eating every 2, 3 hours, got to be meal prepping. So it is a lot of work, but it works. Okay. But if you're just eating anything just to get bigger, you're going to get bigger. You're going to get bigger arms. If you're a guy, you're going to get bigger chest, you're going to get bigger shoulders, but you're also going to get a bigger stomach. And your bigger arms is not going to be all muscle. There's going to be a lot of fat. Same with your shoulders. So you're going to have a layer of fat covering all this muscle you've built. So it's a fine line. You have to make sure that you are consuming, you're in a caloric surplus, so you're consuming lots of food, but you have to make sure the majority, and I would say at least, in my opinion, it should be at least 90-95% of the foods you are consuming on a daily basis should come from whole food sources. All right. They really should. And so what I mean by that is the rest of my 10% of food comes from protein powder or 5% sometimes. I get all my food from natural food sources, egg whites, eggs, yams, sweet potatoes, brown rice, white rice, oatmeal. So chicken, turkey, like those are things, salmon, cod, so all whole food sources. I'm a firm believer that when you are getting good whole foods in your body will soak up those nutrients and use them to your advantage in the gym and will apply it to the physique. Okay. One more thing to add to that, monitor your physique. I talked about this last week on both the Q&A and my coaching reality episode about how it's so important to monitor your physique. You're not just going to wake up one day and go, "Oh my God, I'm fat." No, or "Oh my God, I lost all this muscle." That doesn't happen. It's a gradual progress, but or gradual process, sorry. But if you're monitoring your physique and you're taking weekly progress photos, which I believe everyone should take weekly progress photos, not to put up on Instagram, just for yourself. I take them just so I can make sure I'm staying within striking distance of the physique that I want. And I notice if I'm getting a little too soft, a little too watery, maybe I'm putting on some fat in place I don't want to put on fat, I scale back. Okay. But if I'm like, you know what? No, you still have abs in the morning and you're eating lots of food, you need to eat more if you want to get bigger. All right. So it really helps to have those photos. And I spoke about this the other day, how to me, the most important metric when I work with my online clients are those progress photos. Yeah, sure, they can send me their weight on the scale. They can send me their strength in the gym has gone up. They can send me their energy levels, their sleep. All those are important metrics for sure. They are. But the most important metric is how they are looking. Okay, well, how they are feeling too, obviously, but how they are looking because if I look at their photos and I compare them, I tell this all the time. I don't look at photos on a weekly basis. I usually compare photos every 3, 4 weeks apart from one another, but people are sending me photos on a weekly basis. So I'll compare photos that they sent me at the beginning of, let's say, April to the end of April. So I'm looking at 4 week difference between two photos. You say, yeah, you know what? You only lost maybe 5 pounds, maybe 4 pounds, so a pound a week, but your body composition is changing, which is great because that tells me that we're actually burning fat and building muscle, which is very difficult to do. All right. So, to answer that question, my recommendation, if you are serious about adding on size, you have to look at your diet as a whole and you have to make sure that at least 95% of the foods you're consuming are whole, clean food sources, because that's going to translate to what your physique looks like. If you are just consuming anything just to get bigger and stronger, you're going to look like a power lifter. You're going to get bigger. You're going to get stronger, but you're not going to have an aesthetically pleasing physique because there's going to be a layer of fat covering it. Okay. So just because you're AKA bulking does not necessarily mean that gives you a green card to go eat whatever you want. You still have to be in control and you still have to be disciplined with your diet. Okay. Hey, another bulking question. Nick, should I bulk if I'm already carrying too much body fat? I wouldn't. No, absolutely not. My rule of thumb for when it comes to bulking, and I hate using that word, but adding on size, with myself, it's always been as long as I can still see my abs first thing in the morning, I'm good. if I can no longer see my abs first thing in the morning, I've gone a little too far. And I've been guilty of that in the past. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, scale it back again. Okay, so everyone has their own comfort level of how far they want to bulk. Some people are okay if you're a guy, for example, some people are okay with getting up to 20% body fat. I am not okay with that. Not necessarily because of the aesthetics. I just don't like the way that feels. My highest body fat when I was bodybuilding like competitively was probably around 18, 19%. And I didn't like it. It didn't feel good. I didn't like the way I felt in my clothes. I just didn't feel comfortable. So I always like to stay lean year round. So what I do is I make sure I monitor my physique, but I also incorporate 20 minutes of cardio, either fasted first thing in the morning or immediately after my workout. And that will help keep me lean. Another trick I use, I talked about this on the Q&A last week, is after every meal, I go for about a 10-minute walk. All right. And that's just to help keep the metabolism going. And I just feel better. My digestive tract is feeling better. All right. A good rule of thumb, too, and this is what I tell all my clients, is ideally you want to be going number two twice a day. Okay. I know a lot of people just go once a day, and that's not terrible. But ideally, I like my clients going twice a day, every day. There are some people that only go every 3 or 4 days, which to me is very worrisome. If that is you, I would strongly advise you to invest in a fiber powder or increase your overall fiber intake. But you have to be careful. You don't want to increase your fiber intake too much because that could also cause constipation. All right. So it's good when you are bulking or trying to add on size that again, you assess your physique, you monitor your diet, you monitor your progress again with those progress photos, and you have your own level of comfort as to, okay, am I going too far? And if you feel right now that you have too much body fat, I would not advise you to bulk. I would advise you to cut. So I would advise you to do the opposite. Throw in 30, 45 minutes of cardio, either fasted or immediately after your workout. Consume less food. If you are currently consuming, let's say you're someone who consumes 1 cup of rice per meal, scale it back to half a cup for the next like month. That right there will help significantly because now you're dropping your carbs. Your strength shouldn't go down as long as you're monitoring your protein and fats. Will it go up? Probably not, but it shouldn't go down. All right. And I always tell this to people I work with online. Like, we're dieting you for if it's a competition, photo shoot, or they just want to lose weight. I look, ideally, your weights in the gym shouldn't be going down. I'd be surprised if they go up. Sometimes they go up, but they usually don't go up, especially if someone is depleting quite a bit. But if they start going down, then I worry, okay? Because then it tells me they're losing muscle. So the goal should never be to be lifting lighter in the gym unless you are getting ready for a contest and maybe you're 1 week out and body fat is very low. But for the average person, no, your weight shouldn't be going down in the gym just because it's going down on the scale. So you have to make sure that your macronutrients are in line correctly for your workouts, your lifestyle, and your genetics. Hmm. Okay, Nick, why do my legs grow easily, but my upper body refuses to catch up? Genetics. Genetics. You don't get to choose your parents. It's your genetics. I had a similar issue. My legs responded really well to squats. I don't squat super heavy weight, but my legs really got defined and cut from just squatting and lunging, and that was enough to build pretty good quality legs to compete on and stage with. A lot of other guys, I would say they train legs just as hard as I do, but the genetics weren't there. But those genetics might be superior in the chest and the delts and the biceps. I've always had very smaller arms, weaker arms. Well, arms are a weak point for me. Back's a weak point for me. I wasn't genetically gifted in those areas, so I have to train them. But I don't necessarily train them harder. I just try to think a little bit more outside the box. So if I know squats and lunges work for my physique, why would I change that? They're already working. But for example, if I'm doing an arm workout, and I talked about this a few weeks ago when I finished the show, the judges marked me down on my triceps. So your triceps need to be bigger. And I agreed with them. And I'm like, I got away from doing a lot of free weights for triceps. I was doing a lot of cable work. And just because I got a little lazy in the gym, I was setting up a barbell with weights and setting up the skull crushers and all this stuff. So I got back into doing more free weights. And honestly, in the last 4 weeks, my triceps have gotten bigger. Okay, so I went back to the basics. But I have to be okay with checking my ego at the door and being okay to try new things. And for me, it just took the judges to tell me, hey, triceps. Even though I don't plan on competing again, I'm like, yeah, you're right. You know what? I do have some muscular imbalances. I can work on that. Okay. And so it's not necessarily working it harder. It's just prioritizing the muscle group more and really thinking outside the box. So if you struggle with your upper body, for example, let's say you struggle with your back. I had that problem. So what I did was I created 2 back days, a pull down day and a row day, and it worked. I wouldn't say I trained my back harder than my legs, though. I just created 2 days for it. So I trained it more frequently. right? And it worked. My back responded. So you have to find a formula that works for you. And again, that's where it comes down to working with an experienced, knowledgeable coach that can help guide you through what you might need to do to help tailor the workouts that's going to help you build more muscle for your physique. All right. So don't just assume you're training your upper body wrong because it's not as muscular as your lower body. Those are just your genetics. You could train your upper body twice as hard as your lower body, and you still might have better legs. Those are just your genetics. So instead of thinking, well, I got to work it harder, no, not necessarily. I mean, maybe you do. I don't know what you're doing for everybody, but in most cases, it's just you have to think outside the box. If you're doing the same workouts for your chest, your back, your shoulders, your arms, and you're not working, don't be afraid to train them, change them up. Don't be afraid to add different training principles in drop sets, supersets, circuit training, right? Try different things, static contractions. It will respond. But because you're not genetically gifted in the upper body, you yourself have to start thinking outside the box and be okay with change. Because change in your routine and change of your diet is going to create change in your physique. All right. Nick, is it smarter to train around injuries or take time off completely? I think that depends on how severe the injury is. And I know there's a lot of so-called experts out there that will say, oh no, rest. Rice, RICE, rest, ice, compress, elevate. Here's the thing. You have 126 different muscles that you can train in the human body. Multiply that by all the angles and the planes and the range of motions that you can utilize for all these muscle groups. That leaves a lot on the board for you to do in a workout if you have, for example, a bicep tear that requires surgery. All right, well, you can't do arms, right? Probably can't do chest, probably can't do shoulders, but what's stopping you from training your quads? What's stopping you from training your hamstrings? Stopping you from training your glutes, your calves, your abs? Those to me are muscles that are left on the table that you can still train. Okay. So even if you're in a sling, you can still do that. I had a client who tore his bicep a few years ago and he was training legs 3 times a week, but he wasn't squatting 3 times a week. I mean, he'd have quads one day and he'd have hamstrings one day and he'd have glutes and calves one day. Okay. And then he was doing cardio because guess what? You can still do cardio with a torn bicep. Amazing. So the whole, well, don't do anything. That to me is the wrong advice. Even when I had my hernia last year, I had my hernia surgery. I still worked out around the issue when I was waiting for my surgery. Like, okay, there's certain movements that I probably can't do. For example, standing barbell curls became very difficult for me to do, just the initial lift off. So I got rid of them and I did other exercises. I could still do biceps, but you know what? Seated dumbbell curls didn't bother me. So I did that. I did more seated exercises that required less exertion on on the groin because I had an inguinal hernia. So I had an inguinal hernia surgery. So anything that required me to lift off from the ground or from a squat rack was difficult. Oddly enough, I could still squat without problems though. So I always tell clients, I'm like, see what you can and cannot do if you're dealing with an injury. Trial and error. Obviously, don't go if you have like a torn, let's say you dislocated your shoulder and you just popped it back in. Don't go do shoulder presses with 60-pound dumbbells. Start off light. Try it with 10-pound dumbbells. See how that feels first. Okay. If you're not ready yet, listen to your body. So, but you might not be able to do a shoulder press, but maybe you can still do a dumbbell lateral raise. You can do a posterior rear delt raise. So listen to your body. And again, working with a trainer, someone who's well versed in anatomy and physiology can help you avoid making this injury worse. I mean, I have clients that get injured, rarely in the gym, but it's usually outside the gym. That's where I see most injuries happens outside the gym. I got my hernia outside the gym, not inside the gym. So we have to work around those injuries, but I wouldn't advise anyone to take time off because if you take time off, you're going to fall behind. And I know the mindset is, oh no, your body needs it. I'm like, I disagree with that. I mean, the body part that's injured needs it. But again, you have 126 muscles that you can train. And like I said earlier, multiply that by different planes, different ranges of motion. You can use machines, cables, barbells, dumbbells. You have all these tools you can utilize. And worst case scenario, if you can't do anything muscular, you got treadmills and ellipticals. And if you can't get to the gym, get your ass outside and walk. Because unless you broke your leg, you can still do cardio. All right. And if you did break your leg, well, you might not be able to do cardio, but what's stopping you from going to the gym and doing incline dumbbell bench press, incline barbell bench press, seated dumbbell curls, seated rows, things that allow you to sit, lay down? So I don't like that, that whole mindset of, oh, just let the body rest and heal, because I feel like that's going to set you back. So I would assess the injury and the severity of the injury and figure out ways to work around it. right? So that you don't fall behind. Okay. Nick, I hit my macros, but I still crave junk food every night. What's wrong? That to me sounds like a blood sugar issue. Could potentially be an insulin. No, I was gonna say it could be an insulin resistance issue, but I don't think so. I think it's a blood sugar issue. Your blood sugar levels are too low. So typically, when this happens, what I generally recommend to people who are craving, like say sugar at night, I'll do fat loading towards the end of the day. So I'll give them more fats towards the end of the day. This is actually very common for a lot of people, especially if they're working 9 to 5 jobs. And when you're working 9 to 5, you're distracted, you're busy, you're stressed with work, you're dealing with people, you're on the go nonstop, you get home, you're relaxed. And now all of a sudden, as your cortisol levels start to drop, because there's less stress in your day, you're not moving as much. Now all of a sudden your body's like, oh, we need to eat. So you eat, right? But are you eating properly? Are you making sure that you're practicing proper portion control, number one? And are you eating the right foods? Because if you're having a heavy carb meal, let's say it's 7 o'clock at night and you're having a heavy carb and high protein meal, but no fats, there's a good chance that you're still going to be hungry about an hour and a half later. Or you might be hungry right away. Okay, because you're not giving anything that your body anything that it needs to slow down that digestive tract, which I talked about earlier, okay, because fats help slow things down. So generally, I recommend to people at night if they're having that issue and they're craving sugar or just craving junk food or anything that's not on their diet, backload your fats. Okay, or front load your fats at night, however you want to look at it. Backload your fats towards the end of the day or front load your fats at the end of the night, whatever you think, whatever you want to call it. But I typically give people like that more fats towards the end of the day because they're not craving those foods during the day. So I'm like, all right, let's just give you carbs and protein during the day, but at night, let's give you more peanut butter, let's give you more avocado, let's give you more omega-3 eggs. And in exchange, let's start backing off the carbs. Let's start lowering the protein because we already consumed that earlier in the day. We don't need as much as that, right? We still have that in our system. Our glycogen receptors will be nice and full for your workout tomorrow. So we don't need more carbs. We probably just need more fats to help your blood sugar levels stabilize. All right. In some cases, it can be an insulin resistance issue, but that doesn't sound like that to me right now. Okay. That's a whole other issue. But if that's the case, you might want to get checked, pre-screened for type 2 diabetes. Okay. So that's something to check. But it doesn't sound like that to me because you're only craving it at towards the end of the day. So because it's at the end of the day, that to me sounds more like a blood sugar issue. And a good way to test that, if you're not sure how to test your, oh my God, the amount of people I send to Amazon to get those blood sugar testing kits, they're like $30. Check your blood sugar in the morning and then check it again at night and see what it's at. And that'll give you a good indicator as if your blood sugar levels are too low, too high, right? Some cases too high. And you can assess what's going on and then you can tweak your diet accordingly or work with your nutritionist, dietitian, coach that can help tweak your diet so that issue resolves itself. 9 times out of 10, though, in my experience working with people who have this issue at night, it's a blood sugar issue. And as soon as I start to increase their fats at night, decrease their carbs, decrease their protein a little bit, the cravings go away. So I would try that first. Okay. Okay. A few more questions here. Nick, how do I stay lean in the off season without feeling like I'm dieting year round? So the great thing about the off season, if you are a competitor or you're just relaxing on your diet, is you can have a little bit more flexibility with the diet. So, for example, one thing I do when I was getting ready for the contest, I got rid of certain condiments. One would be the Montreal steak spice, which is loaded with sodium, but I love it. Right? I'm from Montreal. I like my steak spice, even though I don't eat steak. I put it on my chicken. I like the chicken spice too. High in sodium. No calories, no carbs, just high in sodium. Not the best thing for me, but I like it. So I put a little bit on my food for seasoning. During competition, like season, when I'm getting ready for a show, I take it out completely. It's too much sodium. So I add that back in because I'm not worried about holding a little bit of water. Like, and honestly, it doesn't really have much of an impact on my physique whatsoever. But I'm okay with that because I'm not getting on stage to be judged. So I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna have that. I don't go crazy though, right? So I'm not like just pouring like ketchup on things and having all these condiments. I still stick to my sriracha sauce, my hot sauce, sometimes mustard, but low calories, low sugar to no sugar condiments for me. Now, other clients I work with, I'm like, you can take your foot off the gas a little bit if there's something you really crave. Like some people like to have, for example, I have some people like to have honey in their morning tea. I'm like, well, you're not trained for everything right now, so why don't you have 1 tablespoon of honey? That's fine. Do it. Okay. Is it going to make that much of a difference to your physique? Not really. I mean, if you're getting on stage, yes, that could add up over the course of a week, a month to like 3 months of prep or 4 months for some people. So yeah, I wouldn't advise that. But those things make food more enjoyable. Also, make your dieting process more enjoyable. So make sure you're consuming foods that you like. If you don't like the foods you're consuming, it's very hard mentally to get through a diet. I actually enjoy all the foods I have in my diet. People say, I can't eat chicken every day. Who says you have to eat chicken every day? You know, I have some people when I give them a nutritional plan and I say, how's the diet going? Like, oh, I'm so bored. I'm like, well, what are you doing? Well, I'm having meal one and it's always oatmeal, and I'm having meal two and it's always protein powder. And I'm like, right, but I'm giving you choices. You don't always have to have oatmeal for meal one. You could have Ezekiel bread, you could have carbonel bread. For your proteins, you could have egg whites. And for your fats, you don't have to always have peanut butter. You could have almond butter, you could have cashew butter, you could have avocados, you could have eggs. So I always give people choices. So you just have to focus on sticking to those choices, make good choices, but that'll give you a little bit more variety. All right. I have a lot of people like myself who can eat the same thing every day, but some people can't. And if you know you can't, don't set yourself up for failure and just start giving yourself chicken and broccoli every day because that's not going to work. You're going to get sick of it. If you don't get sick of it physically, you're going to get sick of it mentally. All right. So you just can't do that. So you have to make your foods more enjoyable. Adding in extra virgin olive oil, making sure, you know, that's a good fat. You can add that into your food. Get creative in the kitchen. So you have to make sure that you enjoy the diet, but you also have to make sure that you're consuming the foods that got you lean in the first place. All right. But you can consume more of them. Another thing I strongly recommend, I tell everyone they should be doing this. I think everyone should be doing cardio every day. Every day. I don't think there's too much cardio. I mean, obviously, if you're running 6 hours a day, that's probably too much cardio. But for most people, just doing like I do, like a 20-minute, 30-minute brisk walk a day, that's really good for your cardiovascular system. All right. So the body craves movement. Our bodies are not designed to sit in a car for an hour as you drive to work and then sit at a desk for 8 hours while you plump your ass down on a computer. That's not what our bodies were designed for. Our bodies were designed to hunt, to gather, to move. All right. So remember that your body is designed to move. You can ask your body for a lot and your body will respond to that. So if you're fueling it properly with the right foods and you're doing regular cardio, as in every day or at least every second day for 20, 30 minutes, and like I said, it doesn't have to be running, just move your damn body. The amount of people that don't actually even move their body. I mean, there's so many people that get up in the morning, they drive to work, they sit at a computer all day, they drive back home, they sit on the couch. That's it. I mean, I would be shocked if they got in more than 100 steps a day. So you need to move. And if having a step counter helps you stay accountable for making sure you get in all your steps, I know I make fun of the step counters, but if that holds you accountable, then I say do it for sure. All right. But I attribute, for me anyway, one of the reasons I'm able to stay lean year round is because my job's very active. I'm on my feet all the time. The only times I really sit down is to do the Q&A, the coaching reality episode, answer questions from clients. And even then, when I'm answering questions from clients, I'm usually doing it on my phone while I'm walking, I'm moving around. So I'm constantly moving. All right. So it's important to stay moving. And it's also important to practice proper portion control. Just because you're in your off season doesn't mean it's a free for all. Still keep your diet clean, relatively clean, 95% clean. Portion control, use a food scale, progress photos, monitor your physique as you go, and you will not get fat. If you start to notice that, hey, I'm getting a little soft now, scale back your calories. If you're not practicing proper portion control, you're not going to know where to scale things back. You want to know, should I take down my carbs? Should I take down my protein? Should I take down my fats? What do I take down? Because if you don't know, if you're not practicing portion control and you're not tracking your macros at least 95% of the time, it's going to be very difficult for you to figure out what you need to take out or what you need to add on. Maybe it's more cardio. All right. So that's my recommendation is make sure you're doing cardio year round. If not just for the aesthetics, just for your heart health, it's going to help you in the gym too. It is. I mean, I recover 30, 45 seconds after each set, and I attribute that to doing cardio every day. My resting heart rate is 37 beats per minute. So because of that, I'm able to recover quite quickly. If I didn't do any cardio, my resting heart rate was like 70, maybe 80 beats per minute. I might need a little longer after doing a triple drop set, but I don't. So I attribute that to making sure I'm doing my cardio year round, and obviously following a clean diet helps. Making sure I'm getting enough sleep, making sure I'm staying hydrated. All these tools help you perform in the gym, and they help your body recover, and they help you build more muscle and stay lean. All right. Last question. Nick, should I train differently when calories are high versus when I'm cutting? Yeah, so I don't know if you should train differently, but you should definitely approach your workouts a little differently. So, what I mean by that is, for example, again, if I'm training for the show that I just trained for, my workouts actually stayed the same, but I approached them a little bit different. So, like I've talked about in the past, like my workouts, I usually do 5 sets for every exercise I do. I know most people do four, but I do five. And I always like to throw in a drop set at the end of every exercise. That's just me. I don't recommend that to everyone. That's just what I do. I like that. And I do that for multiple reasons. But the main reason, especially if I'm dieting, like if I'm in a severe caloric deficit, is to make sure that I'm warmed up properly. So I might do 2 warm-up sets and 3 working sets. Now that I'm consuming more foods, I just need 1 warm-up set because I have enough calories in me, enough glycogen that I have more cushion for the pushing, right? So I have a little bit more fat, a little bit more water. So my joints and tendons and ligaments are least, I should say, less compromised at perhaps getting an injury. If your body fat is very low, you become more susceptible to injuries. For sure you do. Okay. Joint pain, tendon pain, muscle strain. You could tear a muscle. So when you're dieting, and I mean severe dieting, you have to be very methodical with your workouts and you have to pay close attention. You should always pay close attention, but you should pay really close attention to what you're doing in the gym. Because what I notice for me or for when I diet people down, is that sometimes the person might have to start decreasing weight, and that's okay. I don't mind that. But if they're constantly decreasing weight, like I said earlier, that's not a good sign because it tells me they're burning muscle. But if they're just like, yeah, I'm just feeling so depleted, I feel like, I usually squat 315, but today I had to do 225. I'm like, that's fine. Don't worry about it. You're not going to lose muscle that quickly. But that's your body telling you, like, hey, we need some more calories in here. So that's why I also recommend people do what we call refeed meals, not cheat meals necessarily, but refeed meals. I do advise some people to have cheat meals, but I talked about this on a YouTube short the other day as to who should and who shouldn't consume cheat meals. So if you haven't checked that out, go check out my YouTube shorts because sometimes cheat meals can throw people off, okay, physically and mentally. So for those people, I recommend what we call refeed meals, which are essentially foods that are on your plan, but just more of. So, for example, if I give you a cup of rice with 8 ounces of chicken and 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil, I might say, I want you to have a cup and a half of rice, and I want you to have 10 ounces of chicken, and I want you to have 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil for one meal. So if you're giving me that meal twice a day, just one of those meals, just don't double it, but just times it 1.5. Double it maybe for your fats, maybe 1.5 for your carbs, and maybe like 1% for your protein. Okay, depending on again the person I'm working with, and that right there will usually help the person just replenish glycogen storages more efficiently. If there's a glycogen issue, I'll probably just increase their carbs. If it's more of a mental fatigue and craving, I'll increase their fats. Rarely is it a protein issue. I mean, I usually give everyone pretty high protein, so I don't. Sometimes I have to increase protein, but that's rare. It's usually fats or carbs I have to increase or decrease depending on what the person's feeling. So it's really case dependent. All right. But I don't recommend just necessarily going in there and saying, well, I'm going to train light now because I'm dieting. I don't think that's a good idea. I think that's setting you up for failure. I think that's you're setting yourself up to lose muscle if you're going in with that mindset, like, oh, I should just go lighter because now I'm, dieting. I'm like, no, still try to push it, still try to lift heavy weights, but be very wary as your body fat gets lower. You yourself become more susceptible to injuries. Okay, your muscles are now in somewhat of a compromised state. So just be aware of that. And again, I always recommend for like most people I work with, at least one, preferably 2 warm-up sets for an exercise if you're that low in body fat. But if you're in the off season, you feel good. I still recommend a warm-up set for every exercise, but one should be sufficient, and then you can go on to your working sets. Anyway, that is it for, I think that's it. Yeah, that is it for this week's No Filter Q&A. This episode will be going up on Monday, May the 4th. As a reminder, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. Thank you for supporting my YouTube channel, my online coaching business, my in-house personal training business here in Vancouver, British Columbia. I truly do appreciate all the support and all the feedback that I receive from each and every single one of you. If you haven't checked out our new website, please check it out. foreverfitperformance.com. And if you like what you see, even if you're not a client of mine, I do appreciate Google reviews. They really help my business grow. So if you learn something from the Q&As, you learn something from the coaching reality episodes, my YouTube shorts, I would appreciate a Google review. If you work with me in-house in Vancouver, British Columbia, I would really appreciate a Google review. And if you work with me online, please, any Google review, preferably a 5-star, helps. Anyway, thank you all once again, and I will see you all next week. Bye for now.